We're here today at UNC Chapel Hill with a former player from this very school, Brianna Pinto. She was a 3-year starter here, is a 2-time All-American, and was drafted 3rd overall in the 2021 NWSL draft. Today, Brianna is going to be sharing her story and her advice, a blueprint, if you will, that younger players can emulate if they want to achieve success at the highest level. Brianna, we're so excited to have you on the channel today. Let's get going.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome to Talk Tekkers, our series where we interview and kick it with current and former pros, as well as other personalities to get their insight into the beautiful game.
And a good ball, let it go! And she matches Boyles. Pinto with her first career Tar Heel goal, and it is up at 90. No chance for the keeper. Absolutely stunning.
Brianna, the first question I have for you, was there a moment in time where you were like, I want to do this for a living, I want to go pro?
I come from a sports background, so both my parents were student athletes at the University of North Carolina. So my first goal before ever dreaming of becoming a professional athlete was attending the University of North Carolina and playing for the women's soccer program. From there, I saw so many decorated athletes go on to represent the national team, and that's when I realized that I wanted to be a part of the national team and play professionally across the world. And to be doing it today has been a dream come true.
Do you remember a moment in time where you were like, I think that's the life I want?
I had an older brother and a younger brother, and we always played in the basement. We were competitive, and all of us talked about wanting to play professional soccer and play for the rest of our lives. And we'd go to club games like when Manchester United would come over to the United States. And for me, I got to see people that I idolized. I loved Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi. I loved watching Crystal Dunn and Heather O'Reilly, people I've gotten to know over the years, and they laid the framework for my brothers and I, and we got to see that if we surround ourselves in this environment, we could one day be that. So I think I became more serious about soccer probably around the age of 8. I realized that I was pretty good at it, and my parents always instilled the idea that you can be anything you want to be, and if you work hard enough, that this dream will take you all over the world because it is a global game. So in that tournament, when I was 8 years old, my parents incentivized us to score goals, and they told me if I scored 8 goals in that tournament that I could get an iPod, and that kind of brought the idea that people play for money, and that's what they do for a living, and that was exciting to me, and I wanted to do this for the rest of my life. So when I realized that your performance can lead to a career and a lifestyle where you're a superstar on and off the field, that's when I realized that this is what I wanted to do.
So the iPod Nano? What, you say it was an iPod Nano?
Yeah.
You mentioned at 8 years old, you kind of had that like aha moment, like maybe I could do this for the rest of my life. I bet you that is literally the same idea that many people are watching that I had, is like, how do I go pro? And many of us have that dream, but not many activate on it. What was something that you did, steps you took to be like, this is kind of something I want to take seriously?
I was really fortunate to have 2 brothers that played, and we trained with each other every single day. And early on, my dad established a technical base in all 3 of us to make sure that we were comfortable on the ball. So I would go out to the field every day, and I would start with my dribbling, and I would work on an inside-outside progression. And there was a number associated with a move that my dad would call out, and we'd do it for 20-30 minutes at a time. And so I'm doing inside, outside, inside, outside. Number 1 is like a scissor. Number 2 is double scissor. Number 3 is a Cruyff. Number 4 is outside the foot cut back. Number 5 is a step over turn. Number 6 a Maradona. And then number 7 is a soul roll. And that allowed us to get on the field and be comfortable on the ball. Right. So once I established the technical base, I really fell in love with the game because I was comfortable out there. It was like I was dancing with the ball. So that mindset of falling in love with the game allowed me to see that I needed to work hard on the days when I didn't want to train and work on my technical base, watch the game, work on my fitness so that I could always be a step ahead.
Turn.
Perfect.
So from an early age, your dad is having you and your brothers outside constantly working on the technical side of your game. Was there anything else that you did from ages 10 to 14 in that critical development period to help set you apart?
My parents always emphasized your training environment. and then also the game environment. They always believe that development happens when you stay on the field. So if that means switching a team so that you can stay on the field, that's where you're going to see the greatest development, because you're getting that real game experience where you can try new things, fail, and then fail again, and pick yourself back up.
How critical would you say those like kind of early teen years are in your development, in the development of seeing, you know, those other players that you competed against?
I think the teen years are really critical because by a certain age your technical base kind of sets in, and it can only get incrementally better. Obviously we train well into adulthood and we always want to get better, but to be really good at this game you usually have to start at a young age. However, I believe in development, and I think if you're committed to something and you're willing to work at it, you can surprise yourself with the things that you can achieve. So ultimately it comes from loving the game, watching the game, just being immersed in a soccer environment that's going to help you evolve into a more dynamic player.
So if a 12, 13, 14-year-old girl or boy comes to you and says, hey, I dream of playing at a high level, D1, college, or professionally, what's like one thing that you would tell them to focus on in those early years?
Number one, it starts with your environment, getting in a place where you have trust with a coach, and somebody that's going to push you day in and day out and is going to demand that the standard is sharp every single day. But beyond that, once your environment is set and that you know that you're developing every single day, you need to be coachable. And being coachable is being able to take that constructive criticism and apply it to your game. That means trying something new, failing, picking yourself back up, and doing it again until you master it.
I love that, because I think I didn't start to be coachable until 21, and I'm a coach now, and I think that is, you heard it from a pro, be coachable if you have a good environment.
But full disclaimer, I'm still learning it. I think it's a learning process. There's days where I don't really want to listen, but I remind myself in the back of my mind that every single day is an opportunity to get better, and there's people that believe in you and they just want you to be even sharper every single day, and you can always improve. So it's never going to be perfect, but you can do it.
Moving on to kind of the next stage of your life, the latter teen years, ages 14 to 18 in the US. For those who don't know, it's kind of an important time as kids are looking to commit to schools, universities. For you, the choice was kind of already made with your parents being from UNC. It was always going to be Carolina, right?
Absolutely. Couldn't be convinced otherwise. The most beautiful colors in the whole wide world.
Carolina. Can you tell us a little bit though about that experience, even though you knew you always wanted to come here? How young were you when you committed?
I was 14 years old when I committed. I remember going into Anson's office. He asked me, do you want to be a Tar Heel? And I think that was one of the best questions I've ever been asked in my life. Obviously, I wasn't going to answer on the spot because my parents were like, think about it. But, but I went in the car, I thought about it, and I committed that same day.
Wow. High point of your life?
One of the best moments of my life, yeah, because it was a lifelong dream achieved. And it was all the hours and days of work that my family and I spent on the fields.
So 14 years old, you committed to come here. That's wild to me to even think about. What did club soccer look like for you? You were also involved in the U.S. youth national team at the time. What did that look like for you during that phase of your life?
So being in and out of youth national team camp was always a source of inspiration because I got to be around the best coaches and the best players in the country, and I wanted to take that standard back to my club team and make sure that I led by example. And that involved being as sharp as I could, working as hard as I could to be first in fitness, in passing sequences, doing the counter movement to check away, to replicate the game environment, making sure my passes were sharp and with the correct pace. I really wanted to set the standard, and I took a lot of pride in that. And every day, no matter whether I was at club or the national team, was an opportunity to prove myself.
So those are some things that you mentioned that you were doing personally in practice to try to keep the level high, to push yourself. Were there other things that you were learning at that time, like the importance of mental strength, fortitude? What were you doing outside of practice to continue to get better as well?
I think soccer is a lifestyle. You have to live and breathe it every single day. So in my free time, I was watching the game, learning from the pros, seeing things that I could add to my game. I was training on my own, working on my finishing, working on my fitness, working on my first touch, because those can always improve. And then mentally, I had to understand that nobody's journey to the top is straight. There's going to be 1,000 battles that every soccer player is going to fight, and there are going to be days where you cry over things that don't go your way. And I had to adopt some mantras that still live with me to this day. Next play. So when I miss a pass, how can I forget about it and move on, and then focus on making sure my next action is even sharper. And when I understood that failure is a part of the process, I think that's when I really started to blossom, because I wasn't afraid of risk, because I know all the best players are risk takers, and in the moment of success, they know all the times that they failed previously and how sweet and rewarding that moment is when you finally achieve something you've been working toward.
I'm sure you still are implementing those same things even
Absolutely.
now at the pro level, right?
Absolutely, because every level that you step up, whether that's college or pro or national team, it becomes even harder, and you have to find a way to get even more out of yourself.
You mentioned earlier that at a younger age you were training constantly with your brothers, with your dad, other training groups that had a high standard. When you made it into like the U.S. Youth National Team and you were competing at a high level on the club side, were you still working on those things outside of practice?
Absolutely, because it's a never-ending ascension. You always have to get better, and I'm so grateful for the community that I have here in Durham Chapel Hill, because there's so many other talented players that wanted to get better and had dreams of their own, and we would come together even on Finley Field and work together all afternoons and on weekends whenever we had free time and had a chance to train together. We would develop every aspect of our game. We'd play pickup and small-sided game. It was so special because you've got a group of people that believe in you, that love you, that care about you, want to see you successful.
So there might be some really good players that are watching this right now that still haven't received an offer letter from a school that they really want to go to. What advice would you give them to encourage them, to let them know like it's not the end of the world?
Don't get discouraged because one game does not define you, and I actually have a fun anecdote about that. The first time I ever played in front of Anson Dorrance, I was at a field in Charlotte, and he came in his big blue jacket, and I was so intimidated because this was my dream, playing for the University of North Carolina, and seeing him on the sideline watching me, I froze. And I think I played probably the worst game of my life.
Oh no.
But nevertheless, I was young. I was like 13, and he came back, and I had another opportunity to prove myself. But what I'm trying to say is that one game will not define you. If you have a moment where you're just not your sharpest, know that every great footballer has games where they're just not on. But it's ultimately those who can pick themselves back up, go at it again, and believe in themselves.
Yeah, that's a differentiator. It's a differentiator between her and us. No, I'm just kidding. 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 14, you committed to UNC. 18, you enter here. 3 years later, you're a 3-year starter. You were 2-time All-American. You're a finalist for the Mac Herman Trophy. Then you were drafted into the NWSL. What was the secret? How did you enter college and compete right away and have the success that you did?
One of the things that drew me to this program was the competitive cauldron. It's a set of data that evaluates you 1 through last in our program and incentivizes every player to be on a never-ending ascension and continue to get better. So there's a number of categories between like our physical attributes and then your technical testing and then like your half-field game percentages, like you want to win. Then there's a composite score when you're ranked based on all of the categories in the competitive cauldron, and you want to try and finish as high as you possibly can. Anson prides the program on getting your personal narrative as close to the truth as possible. And
wow.
Something I really love about that is like I always wanted to get better, and there are flaws in everybody's game, and if you can identify where your weaknesses are and really attack them with enthusiasm, you can see you start to improve because your rankings will go up. So to answer your question, I truly believe it was because of the competitive cauldron that allowed me to achieve all those awards at Carolina. I got so much better because of Anson and the staff and the guidance that they provided and just everything they pushed me to achieve while I was there.
Are you able to share where you were in some of those listings?
Yeah, my freshman year I finished 3rd overall in the fall of 2018. My sophomore year I finished 2nd. And then my junior fall I finished first, and my junior spring I finished first. So junior year was split into two because it was the COVID year. So we had the fall and the spring season. So I was really
you did it,
excited.
You're number one.
I was excited to constantly improve. It was a testament to all the hard work, but also because of my teammates that were there to push us. And on the hard days, they made it so enjoyable because we all knew that we were getting better.
So you told me about prior to entering college, how you kind of had this moment where you realized you could do stuff that was just as important off the pitch that ended up helping round you out more as a player. Can you speak to what that was?
Yeah, so I had the opportunity to serve as the U.S. Youth Representative for the United Bid Committee, which helped secure the hosting rights to the 2026 FIFA World Cup. And the way I got a part of that was I was actually playing in a tournament in China, and we were playing against Iran in their first international youth match. And you could just see the joy on their faces of like getting to play at that level. And you know, that was something that many of us may have taken for granted, like getting to play an international match, but like seeing them enjoy that moment for the first time was something that will always stick with me. And it became a passion of mine to deliver more opportunities to play the beautiful game. And so I talked about that experience in an interview for the United Bid Committee, and I was selected as the youth representative that gave a speech at the 68th FIFA Congress in Moscow, Russia. And I remember being in the room where they decided where the hosting countries would be, and I just remember that the room didn't reflect everybody that plays soccer across the world, and I wanted to be a part of that change, and I wanted to figure out how I could use my career and everything that I've achieved at this point in time to give back and to make this game more accessible and remove some of the structural and financial barriers that prevent people from playing this game. I was so honored to be a Black person and a woman on stage for a men's World Cup, because that was pretty unique at the time. This has evolved over time, this passion of mine, and I think it's helped me become more well-rounded and has even developed my love for the game more, because I see that this game has the power to bring people together in a way that a lot of other things can't.
We've already mentioned a couple times that you were a 3-year starter at UNC. The only reason you weren't a 4-year starter was because your junior year you decided to enter the NWSL draft. You were selected 3rd overall. Congrats on that, by the way.
Thank you.
Amazing accomplishment. How have you found the transition from the college game to the NWSL?
Just like the jump from club soccer to college, and now college to pro, the speed of play and the physicality is even greater. So I just had to make the adjustment and become more of a student of the game, making sure that I'm investing in my fitness, my strength, like getting in the gym, watching video so I can understand like the tactical aspect of how our teams are structured, because it's a new environment, different from Carolina.
You have talked about a couple times now that never-ending ascension, and based on everything I've heard from you, I'm sure you have just as high aspirations in the next stages of your career. What are you doing in terms of your development to reach the highest levels in the NWSL, and then I assume to make it into the senior national team for this World Cup?
The senior national team has always been the goal. I want to play in World Cups and Olympics, and the way to do that is by performing at the pro level in the NWSL, and I'm so excited to be back in North Carolina for another 3 years because it's an environment that I know and love. I love our staff, I love our team, and I'm in a community that has raised me to be the player that I've become, and I'm just so excited to really step into my moment with this club. I want to be somebody that North Carolina Courage can rely on this season, and I want to come out with a bang. I'm a midfielder that can score goals and play box to box, and my goal is to show that from the start of our season.
If you could go back in time and tell a 10, a 12-year-old Brianna a piece of advice, and especially the kids that are watching, what's something that you would say to them about chasing their dreams?
I'd say timelines don't matter. I think we all have dreams and aspirations of like when we'd like to achieve things, and it doesn't always go to our plan. I think for me, I'm a believer, so there's a plan for you at the end of the day, and you can walk away knowing that you gave everything you had during your time playing as a soccer player. So don't be caught up in all the awards or what everybody else is doing. Just embrace the journey, be present in the moment, and just cherish the time that you get to spend with all these incredible people that will be in your life because of soccer, because it's been a really fulfilling experience.
So Brianna, thank you so much for your time. Is there anything else that you want to add? We want to hear from you. What's next? What does it look like for you?
So coming up, we've got the NWSL season, so I would encourage anybody that's viewing this to come to an NWSL game, support women's soccer, because we are in an exciting time of the game. Then also, I'm so thankful to Adidas. I'm an Adidas athlete, and they're sponsoring one of my upcoming camps, and I'm so excited to give back just to the community and bring more girls into this sport so they can ultimately fall in love with it just like I did.
Yeah.
Also, I want to thank Soccer Resilience, not only for their investment in me and helping me become a more well-rounded player, but more mindful. But I want to thank them for their investment in the youth and encouraging athletes to prioritize their mental health, because I think we're in a really interesting time where there's a lot going on in the world, and we should take care of one another through this sport. And if we have a chance to reach out and lift one another up, I think that they're doing great things. So
Yeah.
I appreciate them.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming on this channel, sharing all of your insights. There's so much to learn. Guys, all of Brianna's social medias are going to be linked down below. Make sure you follow her career, come out to a game if you are in the North Carolina area. And yeah, that's all we have for you today. Remember, your dreams won't work if you don't. See you guys.